If you ever feel out of control around food, you're not alone, and you're in the right place to learn practical, no-nonsense information about why you binge and how to stop. Binge eating does not mean that something is wrong with you. It's a natural but primitive brain response that you can correct. If you're ready for change, sign up for the Brain Over Binge self-paced online course for less than $20 per month. And if you feel you need personalized support, we also offer one-on-one coaching and group coaching. To learn more, go to brainoverbinge.com/subscribe. And I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to the Brain Over Binge podcast, where you learn a simple, brain-based approach to ending binge eating. I'm your host, Kathryn Hansen, and I'm back again today with our awesome Brain Over Binge coach, Julie Mann. I'm so glad to have you joining me again, Julie.
Hi, Kathryn. I'm so happy to be back.
As I mentioned last time, Julie's going to be on the podcast once per month to talk about many topics and issues that often come up in recovery. These are topics that she thoroughly explores with the members of the Brain Over Binge group and with her one-on-one clients. So she has a lot of experience coaching people in these areas and helping them apply the ideas. As you listen, know that you can get personalized guidance and support from Julie in either the group or in one-on-one coaching. You can learn about both of those options through the links in the show description. And those links are brainoverbinge.com/group for the group and brainoverbinge.com/one, the word one, -on-one-coaching. And that's for the private coaching. Today, we're going to talk about something that we think is so important as you're ending binge eating, and that's embracing imperfection. This applies especially at this time of year because January can be a time when you set big goals for yourself, but then life happens, and it's common to start to doubt yourself and your ability to accomplish what you set out to accomplish. If you fail in some way in connection to a goal, it can be tempting to want to give up altogether. But that's just going to take you further away from what you want to achieve and from becoming the person that you want to be. I think that the common pattern is to expect perfection, and then when that does not happen, because no one is perfect, then the tendency is to simply abandon the goal. And Julie, how do you see this pattern play out in people trying to recover from binge eating?
That's a great question, Kathryn. I always say that dieting, and many of us in this realm have been dieting for a good part of our life, it sets up this all or nothing dichotomy. So this idea of perfection, perfect meals, perfect amounts, perfect macros, perfect eating windows, perfect timing, perfect nutrient profiles, everyone is looking for perfect. And then with recovery, people want to continue that perfectionism with binge-free streaks, staying on track, eating adequately, perfectly, having exact calorie plans. And I just think this is all a setup for continued suffering and pain because there is no perfect. There's no perfect food. There's no perfect meal. There's no perfect timing. There's no perfect. And so seeking perfection is only and always going to end in that suffering.
Yeah, I totally agree, Julie. And I like that you brought up dieting as sort of one of the causes of this perfectionistic mindset, because it does set you up to think you have to follow things exactly. And then when you fail, you feel like all is lost. And that same mindset can translate into binge eating recovery. So that's a really good point to bring up. I'd like to talk now about how you teach people to overcome this harmful mindset, like how you work with the members of the group or your one-on-one clients to teach them how to accept imperfection and embrace it, and how then that helps them keep making progress in recovery.
The truth is that nothing we do is perfect ever. I mean, I've been a teacher for a very long time. I've never taught a perfect lesson, not once, but I didn't think I needed to quit and get a different job. And I've been a mom for almost 2 decades now, and I've never had a perfect day of parenting. And never once did I think I should put my daughter up for adoption. I'm really not cut out for this. And the same applies to food. There is no perfect meal. As I said before, no perfect timing, no perfect recovery path. And we're all so unique in our choices. What works for one person doesn't work for another. And that's why the dieting industry is $1 billion industry, because people publish these books. Maybe something worked for them. And then people think, I just follow that and then I'll have it. And it never works because they're not in that person's body. And another thing I love to say is that there's no track, there's no wagon, there's no ditch, there's no road, So I love to teach my clients that constantly feeling regret about food choices never works, and that anyone can untrain this pattern and deprogram it. And that's true freedom. Because when we're looking for perfection, which we'll never realize, we feel guilty. And then guilt leads to giving up on ourselves. It's just this vicious loop. But the truth is that every time we make a choice that maybe isn't quite what we wanted to do, this is how we get stronger. It's just a learning moment. It's like a baby who falls over and over again and learns how to walk. That's how the baby gets stronger. That's how the baby builds its leg muscles. And so I love to teach clients to get curious instead, asking great questions. I wonder why I did this. How can I learn here? How can I get better? Because the truth is that no matter what you ate or what you did, you get to decide how you're going to think, feel, and act about it. Feeling guilty about, slightly imperfect eating, it's never useful. And there's no such thing as imperfect eating anyway. Instead, we can intentionally choose what we want for our lives and for our eating choices, and then evaluate the learning moment. As I've said before, with everything we do in life, we're either winning or learning. And when we learn, we win more later. So all we do is just ask ourselves, what went well here? And that's a really important question to start with, because it helps to override that negativity bias of the brain. So what went well? There's always something good that you've done. And then what didn't go well? Okay. And then what will I do differently? And you take the lesson and you just keep moving forward from love and from curiosity. The other thing is, when we have these learning moments, that negativity bias of the brain is going to shout out, hey, I blew it. I might as well, or now I need to restrict, or I'll never get this, or some flavor of those thoughts. And you just have to expect your brain to do that, because that's what all brains do. They're always looking for what went wrong. And instead, we can take that learning moment with neutrality and just keep moving forward.
Yeah, Julie, that's all so helpful. I love that you tell people to expect your brain to say, oh, you blew it, you might as well binge. I think that's so important. That one thought, if you can learn to recognize it and not follow it, it can prevent so many binges. I mean, so many of my own binges started with that. Like, I thought I ate something that was not what I ideally may have thought I should be eating. And I would think, oh, you failed, you have no self-control. And I'd go on to do something much more harmful, and that was binge. And I think a big part of my recovery was learning to eat something that I thought was imperfect, that was not exactly healthy, and to be okay with it, and to experience any discomfort or any self-critical thoughts or any of those thoughts saying I blew it, and just not view those thoughts as my true thoughts, view those thoughts as the junk from the brain, and then not follow that food choice with a binge. It's such an empowering thing just to make an imperfect choice and then end it there and not go on to do something much, much, much more harmful.
I just want to add to that and say, it's actually where all the magic and the healing happens. It's in the imperfections that true recovery happens. Because, first of all, again, it's recognizing there is no such thing as perfect or imperfect, especially when it comes to food. That's the first thing. But the second thing is to have one of those moments that you in the past might have deemed as imperfect, where you would have said, screw it, I blew it. And instead going, this is no big deal. It's just a learning moment. And then my body processes the food and I move on and everything's fine. So that's where the magic happens. It's in those quote unquote imperfections.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I try to remind people, if you're a regular listener on the show, you know that I always remind you that recovery does not mean you'll be eating perfectly. And I think that's something people get confused in their mind, because they've envisioned themselves as a recovered person eating exactly the right things at the right times. And that's just not what recovery is. Recovery is in the midst of life with all its messiness and with all its imperfection. And my eating was never perfect. I mean, I'm so thankful that I recovered and stopped binging and got rid of that horrible pain from my life. But I never once have eaten perfectly, like throughout a day. I mean, it just hasn't happened since recovery. Never eat perfectly. I don't even know what that means. Julie, and I know that's something you talk about is like, what if there's no such thing as perfect? Like, what unit of measurement are we using to decide what's perfect and what's not? It's all self-created, right?
Absolutely. It's all arbitrary. It's completely arbitrary. And I think actually for people with decades of different ways of eating or years of different ways of eating that they flip-flop through, it's seeing like, oh, what I thought was perfect then, now this is what's perfect. And, so absolutely there.
I love that you brought up that what you think is perfect at one point changes. I mean, I remember that for myself, what was considered healthy when I was recovering, like much later, it came out that maybe that wasn't the healthiest way to eat. And it's just really important to realize that. That doesn't mean you abandon caring about your health. That doesn't mean you don't care about nutrition, but just have a more balanced mindset that no one can truly define what perfect means anyway.
Right. 100%. And I also love to say, take away all food report cards, all the food grades, because what one person deems as healthy or nutritious, another person would say exactly the opposite about. For every food plan out there, there's somebody arguing for a different food plan. And I love to ask the question, what if there are never perfect meals? What if, like everything else we do in life, we're always just making choices and doing our best? And what if we always just stayed really curious as we figure out the way of eating that works best for us, knowing it will be messy and knowing that from there is all the freedom. It's in the messiness that you find the magic. Because when you truly figure out your unique formula, your unique way of eating, foods that you love, that love you back and leave you feeling sated, it's so freeing. Imagine a life with no more food noise, no more food fears, no more giving all your energy and attention to your next meal. Instead, you're trusting that you're healing, and now you get to eat your meals with full permission and full pleasure. I love to end my meals with, that hit the spot, to let my brain know that the meal is done and now it's just time to move on. And if the meal doesn't sit well for some reason, you just take it as a learning moment and you keep moving forward. And again, you expect and allow your brain to say things like, that was too much food, or that wasn't a perfect meal, or that's not enough, or you blew it. And instead, you just remind your brain, nope, brain, I'm healing. And that was just a learning moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you do that over and over again, you get to that place of freedom that you talked about. And then you don't judge your eating so much anymore. I mean, I don't sit down and judge, oh, is this perfect? Is this what I should be eating? It's just that's not the mindset anymore. And you drop all that judgment. You drop all that, striving to follow someone else's advice, and you eat the way that works for you. You enjoy it and you move on and you get back to living.
Exactly.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Julie, for sharing all of that. I think it's so helpful for everyone to hear how they can embrace imperfection and then move on to that level of freedom where they're just eating and the eating is to fuel their life.
Yeah. I just also wanted to add, Kathryn, I call it the perfectly imperfect path because we're all perfectly imperfect humans.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And I think that the key to making lasting change is to be able to accept that you are not perfect and that you'll never be perfect, but you can have freedom anyway. So, Julie, as we close the show, can you tell people a little more about how they can work with you either in the group or in one-on-one coaching?
Yeah, absolutely. So I love the group. Shout out to everybody in the group. It's just such a positive, wonderful place. We meet 3 times a month on Sunday mornings, 10 a.m. Eastern. Then we have a group forum where members talk to each other and they write to me for coaching. And anyone who joins gets access to all of our calls, all the recordings of the lessons, as well as your amazing course. It's such a wonderful community. It's so positive and uplifting. I'm so honored to work with everyone there. Of course, I'm very happy to work with people one-on-one for people who want a more uniquely tailored session specifically for them. And so I meet with people in 45-minute sessions and we deal with whatever's coming up for them.
Yeah, Julie, thanks for sharing that. Coaching is just so powerful because it's so different from working with someone on trying to perfect your diet. Like that's not what you're doing in coaching. You're really helping each client, each group member come up with the way that works for them. And that is really what's going to provide sustainable, lasting change and freedom.
Absolutely. It's about helping people find their formula and take ownership of their formulas with that self-trust that dieting stripped of all of us.
Totally. And I'll just say here that Julie is just so amazing working with people, and all the feedback I get about her coaching is just so great. And I just want to end the show with some feedback from one of Julie's clients. Her name is Kathryn, and this is what she said about coaching. She said, Julie's coaching was so tailored for me. I've never had someone do that for me in such an accurate and succinct way, which made it way more digestible to my system. So thank you. And Kathryn, we really appreciate you sharing that. And yeah, Julie just really helps you discover your own insights and apply them. So go to the show notes and you can find the links for the Brain Over Binge group and for one-on-one coaching. And Julie, thank you so much for being here today and helping people embrace their perfectly imperfect self.
Kathryn, it's always such a pleasure to be with you, and I'm happy to do it.
Awesome. Thanks for listening today, and I hope you'll join me again next time. And as always, I want to encourage you and remind you that you have the power to change your brain and live a binge-free life. The Brain Over Binge podcast is produced and recorded by Brain Over Binge Recovery Coaching, LLC. All work is copyrighted by Brain Over Binge Recovery Coaching, LLC, and all rights are reserved. As a disclaimer, the host of the Brain Over Binge podcast are not professional counselors or licensed healthcare providers, and this podcast is not a substitute for medical advice or any form of professional therapy. Eating disorders can have serious health consequences, and you are strongly advised to seek medical attention for matters relating to your health. Please get help when you need it, and good luck on your journey. Need more help? You can find all of our current and upcoming options for support at brainoverbinge.com.